Hello friends, I am Dr. Rajesh, working as Assistant Professor in GMN College Ambala Can. Today I am with you with a new video lecture on C programming, and today's topic is the recursive function. What do you mean by recursive function? So before dealing with recursive function, we should know what is the definition of recursion. Recursion's definition is given by this is the definition. Recursion is defined as defining something in terms of itself. Okay, now you see, when for an example, if I take example of a factorial function, n factorial is given as n into n minus 1 factorial. So here you see that factorial has been defined in terms of factorial with one number less. So in this if I say that factorial has been defined in terms of factorial, so there would be no exaggeration in saying that factorial has been defined in terms of factorial. So there would be no exaggeration if I say that recursion definition is being used in this particular formula, the formula for factorial. So this is the recursion, like defining something in terms of itself is called recursion. Okay, so now we have gone through the definition of recursion, which is defining something in terms of itself, like factorial is defined in terms of factorial only, then this definition is recursion. So recursive function, we next shall see what are recursive function. Recursive function are those functions that use the definition of the recursion. So recursive functions are those functions that use the definition of recursion. If I say factorial is a recursive function, because factorial is a function. So if I say factorial is equal to n into n minus 1, and if I define this as fact n is equal to n in fact n minus 1, so this function type of function defined is called recursive function. Okay, so this is factorial defined in term factorial with one number less. Now we will see this through an example. We will write a program, and the program you to find the factorial, and in particular in the examination it will be given that find the factorial using the recursive function. So if it is mentioned in particular that find the factorial using recursive function, then you have to give this program in particular. Otherwise you can also do the factorial calculation by using the loops like for loop. Okay, so if it is asked in the examination that find the factorial uses the recursive function, then you will write this program, and the program is given by this one, which will be presented here. And for the same I am going to show you that it is given by this one. Here we have defined a factorial function, and this thing is known as the function return data type. This is the name of the function fact, and these are the argument function parameter. Okay, and its type is also defined int n. So here function starts. So we have defined the function. If value of n is greater than 1, then it will return n fact n minus 1. Again call the function with one value less. Else if value is 1, because factorial is also positive number, or 0 is also 1. So if it will be 0 or 1, then it will return 1. So this is the program making use of factorial function using the definition of a recursion. Okay, now since we have defined the function before the main program, so we don't need to declare it inside the main program body. So it will automatically be taken, and this is called function definition. Okay, if it is declared before the main program, then we don't need to declare the function inside the program. Okay, now we start the main program. This is int main. This is the return type of the program. It is int type, and main program starting here. Clear screen is used to clear the screen before anything is done by the any other programmer. So nothing will be written, so it will be a fresh screen. Whatever you will input and output, only that will be shown. So this is the function of the clear screen. And we have declared a variable int p. It is integer data type. P is a variable of integer data type. Now next is user is asked a value to enter. Okay, so that value will be scanned by the computer, and then here factorial program is called. Factorial program is called, and the say if we call the we use the value, enter the value here 5, then the output will be 5 factorial, and which is 120. So if we see the output, then we will discuss its functioning, that how do it function. So its functioning will be discussed. So if the value of the p is entered as 5, then what will be the output? So this will be the output. Here we say we entered the value 5, then the output will be 5 factorial will be 120. And how this program is functioning, and how the calling to the function fact is being done. So we will see. Firstly, the function fact is called with value 5. Okay, then this fact with value 5 causes to call the fact with value 4. Then this fact with value 4 causes to call the fact with value 3. This further causes to call the fact with value 2. This further causes to call the fact with value 1. Okay, and that 1 factorial is returned as 1. So that is the calling that is being done, that when fact is called with 5, this ultimately calls the factorial 4, that calls the factorial 3, which further calls the factorial 2, and which further causes to call fact with value 1, and we know the fact is 1. And how value is returned to the program, this fact 1. Now we'll see how this value is returned to the program back. Firstly, the value is returned of that of factorial 1, which is 1, which is then multiplied with 2, then fact 2 is returned, which is multiplied by 3, then fact 3 is returned, which is multiplied by 4, fact 4 is returned, and which is multiplied by 5, then fact 5 is returned. So these values are returned in the reverse order. Firstly, the value that comes in the last is returned first, and the value that comes at first is returned at the last. So this is the order in which the values are returned to the program. Okay, now this is the program making use of the definition of the recursion. Okay, so this is the program. This get ch and printf statement is used to print the value of factorial of p, and get ch is to hold the screen, and return is the return something value, because this program we have used has a return type int, so we have written as return 0. So next we will discuss that what are the advantages and disadvantages of using the recursive function. First and the foremost advantage is that with this algorithm becomes very similar. Program becomes something like compact. Program is easier to understand because a simple definition is being used, and it becomes easy to understand the program which is using the recursion definition. Okay, so recursion definition, the program that make use of the recursion definition are easier to understand. So this is the advantage of our that particular recursive function. Next we will see there are also some disadvantages associated with recursive function. So we will see what are the disadvantages of using the recursive function. These are given by this one. Each time recursive function is called, new memory allocated by stack, and thus if recursion is wild, then stack can overrun. Okay, the stack may overrun with memory. So this is the disadvantage. If some heavy recursion is used, like we use the recursive function for a very large value, then recursion is done many times. In that case, every time new memory is allocated when the function is called. Like in the earlier case, if I say the fact function was called 5 times, one was for 4, 5, 3, 2 and 1. Okay, so in the last program we were using for n is equal to 5 times we were using the factorial program. That factorial function, recursive function, was called 5 times. If value is very high, something like 200, 300, then 300 times to call the fact function is really very hectic process, and it every time memory is allocated, so this may cause the stack to overrun out of the memory. Okay, and the second disadvantage is that I already told you that factorial can be determined by using the iterative method also. In this we could use the for loop to find the factorial of a number. So that is the corresponding iterative version of the factorial program. Okay, so what is the difference between iterative and recursive version? Iterative version and the recursion corresponding to iterative or as compared to iterative may be bit slower than their iterative version. So we could say that it is less efficient than the corresponding iterative version. So therefore it could be somewhat slower, because every time the memory is allocated and the function is called many times, and every time new memory is allocated, so this is less efficient than the corresponding iterative one. So it has its own advantages and disadvantages that we have learned, and we have learned what is recursion and what is recursive function, and we have also taken an example of factorial and made a program using the recursive function definition. Okay, so this is all we have from this lecture, and if you like the lecture, please like, subscribe, share and comment. So this is Dr. Rajesh saying you goodbye. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching.